I would like to welcome the audience to the September 19th, 2023 Parish Planning and Zoning Board meeting. Would you all please stand while Mr. LaSalle Williams says the invocation and pledge of allegiance?
Dear God, again, we come thanking you for another blessed opportunity. Forgive us our sins and our shortcomings and make us fit to serve. We thank you, Lord, for all the many blessings that you have blessed upon us. We ask that you let your Holy Spirit come in this meeting tonight to dwell with us. We pray for the sick and the poor and suffer throughout the land. We ask that blessing upon this board and on this staff. And we pray for those who come tonight seeking our help. Let the Holy Spirit guide and lead us that we might do that which is right in your sight. This offers our prayer this night in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Amen.
Yes. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Christie, would you please call the roll?
Chair Kirk Smith,
Here.
Vice Chair Art Little,
Here?
Julia Dickerson is absent, Ms. Latricia Cobb,
Here.
Mr. Keith DeBrock,
Here.
Sharon Galicia is also absent, Ms. Janelle Hyatt, Mr. Jake Porche,
Here.
Mr. Carl Vincent, Mr. LaSalle Williams,
here.
and Ms. Deanne Winey.
Here.
This is an 11-member board. It will take a majority of those members present to grant or deny any request heard tonight. The chair will refrain from voting unless the vote might affect the outcome. The meeting will be conducted with me reading the request from the agenda. The planning staff will give a presentation and report their recommendations. If the applicant would like to add to the staff's presentation, or if someone from the audience has comments, please come to the microphone and state your name, address, and the nature of your request. All persons wishing to speak other than the applicants need to fill out a blue Request to Appear form located in the back of this room. The form must be given to a staff member prior to the reading of the agenda item. As required by this board's bylaws, in all cases, the proponents will be limited to 10 minutes. Opponents will be granted to 10 minutes as well, with each speaker allowed no more than 3 minutes. I recommend that a spokesperson be selected if there's a large group wanting to speak on the same agenda item. If 4 more speaker request forms are submitted, the time allowed for individual speakers will be limited based upon the number of forms submitted. The chair has the right to limit speakers who present redundant information or personal attacks. In unique situations, the chair may extend, or the board may vote to extend the time allotted for speakers. After discussion, the board will vote on each request. I will announce the decision of the board after the vote. The variants and exceptions are final tonight. The ordinance amendments will go before the police jury for final action on Thursday, October 5th, 2023. This meeting is being filmed by the Calcasieu Parish Government Channel and can be viewed on Wednesday and Thursday following the meeting. For additional run dates, check the website at www.calcasieu.gov, Channel 5 in Lake Charles, Sulphur, Moss Bluff, Westlake, Vinton, DeQuincy, and Gillis, Channel 99 in Carlos and Grand Lake. Please either turn off or silence all electronic devices. Item 5, take appropriate action to approve the minutes of the August 22nd, 2023 Planning and Zoning meeting. I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes. Motion by Ms. Cobb, second by Ms. Hyatt. All those in favor state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There being none, the motion carries. Item 6A, take appropriate action on the following applications. 1022 Franklin Road in Ward 3, variance to decrease the front yard setback requirement for an accessory building, required 30 feet, requesting 22 feet. The applicant, Jerry Baker Edux, this is case VAR-0823, 2022-0236. I will entertain a motion for approval with conditions. Motion by Ms. Cobb, second by Ms. Hyatt. Ms. Tunn.
This property is in South Lake Charles and encompasses 1.84 acres. On May 31st of this year, the applicant obtained a temporary permit to allow a storage sea-can on the property. The planning staff received a complaint regarding the front yard setback that was not in compliance with the parish code. At this time, the applicant is requesting to decrease the front yard setback requirement from 30 feet to 22 feet. Because minimal impacts are to be expected, the staff recommends the request be granted with the condition that the development adhere to the site plan on file with the Division of Planning and Development, provided that the director or designee may authorize adjustments to the site plan in light of technical or engineering considerations discovered during development. You also have a opposition petition uploaded on your tablet.
Thank you, Ms. Tunn. Does the applicant have anything to add to this presentation? Mr. Jerry Baker?
Chairman, as Mr. Baker makes his way to the podium, prior to this meeting, Mr. Baker and the other speakers and I met. Mr. Baker's going to reserve 2 minutes for rebuttal.
Okay.
Name's Jerry Baker. I live at 1022 Franklin Road. I bought the property in 1975, and I've been in that subdivision for way longer than any of these people.
Could you turn the microphone up a little bit? Can't hear you, Mr. Baker.
I said I live at 1022 Franklin Road, and I've been there since 1975. I built my house in '78, and I've done everything that I've done on that property through y'all. I've always had permits. And I bought that sea can from my little brother. His house was destroyed, and when he was finished with it, I bought it from him and moved it to the house. But I got a permit, and I got a variance for it to be where it's at. I've already paid for it.
Well, I think that's the purpose for us here today is the variance from the distance you have it set.
Yeah, I've already paid the
Because it's not
$200.
at 30 feet, it's at 22 feet.
Right.
Okay.
But I just got the rest of my insurance money last month. I didn't get much. In the first go-around, I didn't get much. And I got enough to tear that barn down, and first off, I had to get the roof on my house and my garage. And they had to change a bunch of metal on my shop in the back. But it didn't leave me much, so I had to get a lawyer, and I just got my money last month. But the purpose of that sea can is for me to take the furniture out of my house, stuff that I got to move because the floors have to be redone. It's a log house I live in that I built there. And that 180-mile-an-hour wind pushing against the walls there in the front room, it pushed it through the logs, and it's left some marks on the wall. So I'm going to have that sanded, painted, or no, varnished rather. And I got some other stuff that I'm going to do to it. I'm going to have it washed and everything. And I used to do all that myself, but I'm not able no more.
Okay. Any questions on this item for Mr. Baker? Mr. Porsche?
Sea can, right?
Right.
Transportable sea can?
Yeah. And it's just temporary. It's just for me to get my work on my house done, and it'll be moved in.
Right.
It's not permanent.
Is anything in the sea can?
Not yet.
permanent? Oh, yeah. Is the tree prohibiting you from moving it?
Right, yeah. My son came and he got up with my chainsaw and we cut limbs out to put that thing to where it's at, but it would mess the tree up really bad if I cut it back any further than that.
How long do you think you will need it there?
Well, I've had 27 contractors come out to help me, and
Wow.
they draw and do stuff and make notes, and they tell me they're going to be back in a couple of days to give me a bid sheet on it, and none of them come back. Well, I take that back. The guy that came for the fence around the property, he came and gave me a bid of $32,000 to change that fence out around my property, and me and my boys did it in 1 week, and he said it would take him 2 weeks to do it. I asked him if that bid was That bid was because we've been friends for all these years, and that was a special price for me, but he had no comment.
But you'd have to move it around and maybe on the side of the garage.
Well, that's not gonna be, that's gonna mess me up, because that's where I drive through to get back there to, if I gotta bring somebody, but bring an animal to the vet or bring hay in.
For discussion's sake, you think a year? You need
I
it-
hope it ain't gonna be that long.
Okay. 6 months?
Hopefully.
That's all the questions
Okay,
I have for now.
thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Baker.
Okay.
Mr. Jim Klipzig?
I'm Jim Klepsig. I live at 1084 Franklin Road. And there's 3 properties between my wife and I's property. We've been there 30 years. There's 3 properties between us and Mr. Baker's property where he put the C-can. And you can see it's an ugly orange, rusty box that causes the neighborhood to look like an industrial laydown yard instead of an inviting neighborhood. The main road, Gossett, there's only one way to in and out of the subdivision, Gossett. So everybody has to come by the corner, that corner, back up one. Everybody has to come by that corner in or out of the subdivision. And it really changes the look. You know, your front yard, everybody has a responsibility to maintain their property for their neighbors' property value. And this thing is the opposite of that. 22 feet from the road, you can see in the picture, the other picture, how close it is to the, that's his fence and ditch. My house is just past this. For obvious reasons, we're asking you to deny it, deny the variance. The other issue about the C-can is in 2003, Mr. Baker got a variance to build a 2,000 square foot shop. So he had to get a variance then, and he hasn't, as far as I can tell, he hasn't reduced his accessory building, square footage anywhere. So this, by logic, this has got to put him over square footage for accessory buildings because he had to get a variance for a 2,000 foot shop. So we're asking you to deny the variance.
Thank you, Mr. Klipzig. Any questions for Mr. Klipzig by the board? Thank you, sir. Jeff Corbello?
Name is Jeff Corbello, live at 1145 Franklin Road. My folks have been out there, have had that property for probably 60-something years. We have, I think we have a total of 9 to 10 acres on Franklin Road itself. Through the years, like I said, we've tried to improve what we have out there, make it better. There's a lot of nice houses that have been built facing this area too. As things go along, everybody tries to come together, make it a better place to live, make your value of your property better. I mean, things have happened on that corner through the years that have come and gone. And like I said, this can being moved in, as it was moved in, was kind of on a weekend deal. Permits might have not been issued at the time. There was a kind of lot of gray areas when this thing came in. Like I said, the first turn I make to go to my house, I see this big orange can. What he's telling you is he can't move it back, which is, to me, is not true, because he can park a truck next to this C-can on the north side of it between there and the tree. So if that's the case, then why couldn't you move that building back a little more? whether the tree hangs on it or not. I mean, we've all had to cut trees, we've all lost trees during a storm, and that shouldn't be a drawback why you can't move it back. All we're asking is to kind of go by the rules that are laid in place, which they have the rules in place. So let's let you guys help us to follow them. Make this a better place for all of us.
Any questions from Mr. Corbello, by the board? Thank you, Mr. Corbello.
All right, thank you.
Okay, nope. Robert Gribio? Back to Mr. Baker.
My name's Robert Grimion. I live at 1185 Highland Street in this subdivision. I'm against this because, first of all, I haven't heard anybody say there is a time limit on these C-cans. Mr. Baker said that he could not put this C-can because it, at a certain place where the gentleman asked him, because it would block him from getting to his animals if he had to take them to the vet. Well, that's not true, because on Gossett Street, there is a gate onto his property. He's used the gate before several times. I don't know, why all of a sudden he can't use it. It's just, like the gentleman said, it doesn't, I can understand the sea cans coming out after the hurricane because people needed places to store it. But so far, there's nobody been saying how long this can go on. Their C-can, his C-can is so close to the road, and it doesn't do the subdivision any good whatsoever. He definitely hasn't. He's been there for I don't know how long. He says there's nothing in it, so it's been sitting there since the hurricane with nothing in it. So, and he's going to finish all this in 6 months. I don't see it happening. He can move that C-can around the back if that would be under the rules of these temporary C-cans. I am against this.
Any questions for Mr. Grimion? Of the staff?
When was the permit given to put the C-can in the property? And how long is it for?
The temporary permit was issued May of 2023, May of this year.
And it states how far you have to put it back?
The ordinance states that your front yard setback is 30 feet.
Okay, but it's just,
He's at 22.
so he should have put it back when he got it, right?
Yeah, regardless of whether it's temporary or permanent, it's got to meet the setback.
Okay. Mr. Baker, would you come to the microphone? Would you like to address some of the concerns that were brought up?
Yes, sir, that C-can that he's so I'm upset about there is quite a bit taller than my truck. My truck fits in that space he's talking about, but the tree limbs is not going to it's going to interfere with, to move that can. But I mean, I'm not trying to. I just need to get my place fixed.
How long has the C-can been in your yard?
I tell you the truth, I don't really remember. I just heard y'all say May, but it don't seem like it's been that long.
You don't recall when you brought it in?
I didn't bring anything and I had a guy bring it in. It wasn't on a weekend.
Okay.
But I'm just still trying to get people to help me work on my house. I got a couple of guys lined up, and if they come through with what they telling me, but they got other jobs they're working on right now. And these people, they think that I need to move that C-can somewhere out in my pastures, but that's not going to be too convenient to move stuff out of my house and move it out there in the sun. It's where it's at right there. I got shade on it. And that's important. Them C-cans get hot.
Has it been there for a year?
Oh, no, it hadn't been there,
Okay.
no.
I'm just trying to determine.
There's sea cans in the neighborhood that's been there for 3 years, and they're not saying anything to them.
I'm concerned about what we're talking about at this location, and that's why I'm asking.
This is the first time I've ever had one.
Okay,
I've never had one before.
okay.
And I've got a building that was built in the back where my tractor shed was, and I had one of those, it's red, the little building is, and it's got a roll-up door on the front and a walk-in door on the side, but somebody called in and made a complaint about it, saying that it was a sea can, but it's not a sea can.
One of the other concerns that was brought up was what is the potential duration you would have it?
How long is it gonna take me to fix my house?
Okay.
I can't tell y'all exactly how long I don't know how long it's gonna take these people before they get to my house, you know? I'm on a waiting list.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Baker?
But I tell you what I am gonna do. As soon as my house is fixed and I get all my stuff, I bought 11 acres up in Beauregard Parish, and I'm gonna move up there. I got a barn being built now.
Okay. Ms. Cobb?
Yes. If we set a time limit as to how long it can be there, can you deal with that?
Ma'am, I don't see how I can, because, I mean, y'all are wanting me to, put something in writing that I can't do. I'm just now getting my money to get the rest of my house fixed, and,
And they're concerned about how long it's gonna be there. That's the concern.
I just explained to you that I got people they're saying they're gonna come, and now whether or not they show up, they got other jobs ahead of me, but it's just, it's tough, and I've talked to other people that their houses they're tore up, and they're still waiting to get their insurance, just like I had to wait. And they had to wait for so long that they're gonna have to have their houses tore down. The damage on them now is.
Mr. Porsche?
My question's for the staff.
Okay.
So I'll ask it once.
Any other questions for Mr. Baker? Mr. Porsche? Thank you, Mr. Baker.
So he has a temporary permit for the CCAN. When does that temporary permit expire?
6
November?
months.
6 months,
November
okay,
of this year.
okay. But this is a permanent zoning variance, correct? So my issue with the request, it's 8 feet, and it's temporary, and it can be moved. I have one of those, we move it from job site to job site. I have a problem with granting a permanent zoning variance that sets a precedent for this street, this area, at 22 feet when nothing else that I can see previously has been changed to that. So it's 8 feet. It's a movable, temporary storage container. I just have a problem with granting a permanent variance for that.
I agree.
Any other questions, concerns, comments? Ms. Christie, roll call vote.
Ms. Cobb?
No.
Mr. DeBrock?
No.
Ms. Hyatt? Mr. Little?
No.
Mr. Porsche?
No.
Mr. Vincent?
No.
Mr. Williams?
No.
Ms. Winey?
No.
8 against.
Motion fails. Item 6B, take appropriate action on the following application. 2100 block of Manchester Road in Ward 8. Variance to decrease the side yard setback. Requirements for a pond required 50 feet, requesting 25 feet. The applicant is Cornell Guidry. This is case VAR-0823-0238. I will entertain a motion for approval with conditions.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Cobb, second by Ms. Hyatt. Ms. Tunn.
Properties in the Manchester area and encompasses 2 acres of land. The applicant recently dug a pond on the property for personal use. The pond does not meet the required 50-foot setback from property lines. The applicant is requesting a side yard setback of 25 feet. Because the development is located on a narrow lot, the staff recommends the request be granted with the following conditions. that the development must be in accordance with Section 26-122, 1H4I through XII of the Parish Code of Ordinances, that any deviation exceeding the submitted application will require another review by the Division of Engineering, and that a development permit must be obtained within 30 days of Planning and Zoning Board approval.
Thank you, Ms. Tunn. Does the applicant have anything to add to this presentation? Mr. Cornell Guidry? Nothing? Okay. Gracie Robinson? You have anything? Okay. We have one card against, is it Maggie Bello or Bello?
My name is Maggie Bello, and I live at 2052 Manchester Road. I am a resident along with my husband. We own about 17 acres right next to the property where Mr. Cornell or Mr. Guidry is requesting the variance. We are opposing it because it is very close to our property line. It's within 25 feet rather than a 50. The property owner, instead of asking for permission to get the permit, he's now asking for the forgiveness. You know, he never ended up coming to any of the neighbors, to me or the other neighbor, to ask, you know, if it was okay or give us heads up. That property or that pond was actually dug up on the weekend. I just don't think that's the way we do things, you know. I mean, we've been there for over 20 years. We keep our property neat. That property is really not well taken care of. The grass is not always cut. Now with the pond being dug and the water in there, standing water, it's going to cause, you know, mosquito brewing. We have tenant that lives right next door. They have small kids. We just don't think it's the right thing. The property owner knew that the property was narrow. Why put something there that is going to affect the neighbors? He is not living there, and he's not going to be affected. So I think it was a selfish decision.
Okay. Anything else, ma'am?
I think that would be it.
Okay. Any questions by the board for?
Are you the property owner to the north of this piece of property?
Yes, sir.
You live in that home right there?
I live 3 properties down in the brick home.
Okay.
And right next door to that property, these are my tenants. That's my property as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Guidry, would you like to address any of these issues?
Cornell Guidry, 1843 North Prater Street, Lake Charles, Louisiana. And my ex-wife I worked overseas for 10 years. My ex-wife was supposed to be taking care of the property, having it cut from some neighbor, and I didn't know none of this was getting done at the time. So, because I was in Iraq and Eastern Europe working. So I wasn't out here too often, so I didn't know anything about that. And I never knew I knew the people that moved there. I never met this lady before, and I never seen anybody at the house over there. So I didn't. I knew it was a rental property because I would see a sign.
Did you
for rent.
authorize the removal of the dirt?
Sir?
Did you authorize the removal of the dirt?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And I was just trying to do something for my grandkids. One of them is autistic, It just is and I got PTSD. It's just a common thing. I was planning on putting a little thing to sit down and just relax. Cause when my wife works overseas, and we was planning on billing whenever she finishes.
Any questions?
Cause I didn't bill anything there yet because I'm taking care of my mother. She's 85, so I'm only caretaker. So I'm kind of busy with that. That's why I can't bill anything. And my wife is, like I said, she's overseas working, and I'm stressed. I'm trying to take care of everybody, you know.
Any questions for Mr.
You
Guidry?
still in the military? You out?
No, sir.
Any other questions for Mr. Guidry? Thank you, Mr. Guidry. Any questions by the board for the staff on this item?
Is there a fence that I missed? Okay, I'm gonna address this, y'all. Help me out here. Is there some type of fence bordering, or, I don't have my glasses with me right now, so-
Says
but I'm looking
barbed
at this one.
Says a barbed wire fence,
Just some,
The barbed wire fence,
barbed wire,
or, yeah,
4.5 feet.
not privacy. There's no privacy fence.
You're just looking for a barrier?
because the lady stated that there were, I think, something about kids and so forth, so I was just thinking, safety-wise, what was actually surrounding this in terms of barrier? So,
Okay.
thank you.
There's no further questions. Ms. Christie, roll call vote.
Mr. DeBrock?
No.
Ms. Cobb?
Yes.
Did you say yes?
Yes.
Ms. Hyatt? Yes. Mr. Little?
No.
Mr. Porsche?
Yes.
Mr. Vincent?
No.
Mr. Williams?
Yeah.
Ms. Winey?
No.
Chair Smith?
Yes.
5 for and 4 against.
Motion passes. Item 7A, take appropriate action on the following application. 581 Concord Drive in Ward 1, exception to allow a borrow pit, .20 acres. Applicant Ivan Crochet Edux. This is case EX-0623-0179. I will entertain a motion for approval with conditions.
So moved.
Motion by
Second.
Ms. Cobb, second by Ms. Hyatt. Ms. Tunn.
This property is in Moss Bluff and encompasses .92 acres. The applicant is requesting an exception to excavate less than a quarter-acre borrow pit. In order for the applicant to move forward with this project, they must receive board approval. Should the board approve it, the applicant will make another application to decrease the setback requirements according to his site plan. Because there are similar developments within the immediate area, the staff recommends the request be granted with the following conditions: that the development must be in accordance with section 26-122 1H4I through XII of the Parish Code of Ordinances, that a letter of no objection from the Consolidated Gravity Drainage District Number 2 must be submitted prior to issuance of a development permit, and that any deviation exceeding the submitted application will require another review by the Division of Engineering.
Thank you, Ms. Tunn. Does the applicant have anything to add to this presentation? If present? No. Nothing? Okay. Any questions by the board?
Question in regards to setback limits. Is the application aware of and in compliance with?
Not in compliance with the setbacks at this time. Should you approve him to dig the borrow pit, he will make another application to come back before you to request a decrease of his setback requirements. In your packet, I don't know if you saw, he does have letters from all three neighbors that abut his property that are not in objection to his request.
Okay. Any other questions on this item?
I guess this may be for the applicant. Why so big?
In order to have a pond.
State your name and address for the record, sir.
Ivan Crochet, 581 Concord in Moss Bluff. It wouldn't be big enough for a pond. We're actually making a fish pond. We're starting out with the borrow pit like always. It's just too small. It's just a little ditch if we have to go the 50 feet. So we're asking for the 25 to have enough pond and volume to raise some fish for the grandkids and the parents. And it's a flat property with St. Augustine grass established all the way around it, which will stay, and erosion will be minimal, if any, limited.
You're not scared of this pond, according to this one sketch? It looks like it's closer than 25 foot from your house.
No, sir, I'm not scared of it. I want it there. It doesn't bother me. We're on the end of Concord at Belfield Drain Ditch, which y'all did a tremendous job when y'all repaired that bridge on Belfield. We haven't had issues with the rising water yet, so it doesn't bother me. I've dealt with that all these years. And they're going to build my pond in such a way for protection of kids. They're going to have a little 2-foot step and a 4-foot step. If anybody was to get in it, they could get back out. So we're thinking it out as best we can.
Okay. Any other questions from Mr. Crochet? Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Just as a reminder, today we're only voting on the borrow pit to haul the dirt off-site.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Ms. Christie, roll call vote?
Mr. DeBrock,
Yes.
Ms. Hyatt. Yes. Mr. Little,
Yes.
Mr. Porsche,
Yes.
Mr. Vincent,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yeah.
Ms. Winey,
Yes.
Ms. Cobb,
Yes.
8-4.
Motion passes. Item 7B, take appropriate action on the following application, 3619 Hurd Road in Ward 3. Exception to allow commercial development institution. Applicant Fair and Hurd Edux. This is case EX-0823-0185. I will entertain a motion for approval with conditions. Motion by Ms. Cobb, second by Ms. Hyatt. Ms. Tunn.
Property is located in Lake Charles area on Hurd Road and encompasses 1.25 acres of single-family residential zone land. If approved, the purchaser intends to construct a 16-person adult residential care home. This type of home is specialized in offering a higher standard of personalized elderly care. Because the proposed development is consistent with the character of the area, the staff recommends the request be granted with the following conditions: that the development adhere to the site plan on file with the Division of Planning and Development, provided that the director or designee may authorize adjustments to the site plan in light of technical or engineering considerations discovered during development, that all exterior lighting must be oriented inward toward the development and the light source cannot be visible to adjacent properties, that 6-foot screening is required in accordance with Section 2650 of the Parish Code of Ordinances, and that the use be limited to an adult residential care home.
Thank you, Ms. Tunn. Mr. Crane.
Mr. Smith, Mr. Chairman, I have had conversation with the immediate adjoining neighbor, Mr. Mike Gillum. And Mr. Gillum, he's not able to attend tonight. He's had some health issues. He had heart surgery, but he's got some concerns about the development, and he has requested that this be deferred. And I would recommend that you consider a motion to defer this so that perhaps the developer can get with Mr. Gillum and discuss those concerns. And again, he hasn't indicated whether he's against or for it. He just has some questions He's not able to attend tonight. I know that you probably have some other neighbors that have submitted some cards tonight. And so I think with just an abundance of caution that I would request that you
We have
consider a motion.
substantial amount
I'm sorry?
We have a substantial amount, 6
Yes,
in
sir.
opposition. Mr. Gabb, correct me if I'm wrong, we would make a subsequent motion?
If the board is inclined to entertain a motion to defer, it would be a motion to defer a second, and that would take precedence over the main motion.
Okay. Is there a motion to defer? Motion by Ms. Cobb, second by Mr. Porsche. All those in favor, state aye.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, since it is a motion, before you take action, you may want to let the applicant at least.
Does the applicant have anything that they would like to discuss with regards to deferment only? Yes, sir.
Cullen Eggleston, 832 Redwood Drive, Lake Charles. As far as the deferment, I did talk in length with Mr. Gillum, and he is in opposition. As far as if the reasoning is, I've asked him multiple issues, is if there is going to need to be a commercial sewer system, he is in opposition. If we can annex the water, the wastewater into the city, which we might have a pathway, which is our first choice, obviously, he is not in opposition. That is his wording. I'm not going to speak for him, but that's what he said. As far as the deferment, I'm happy to address anything today. I think most things that we would address are hearsay, that I've heard the issues that are coming up. As far as the sewer system, the sewer system and drainage seem to be the main issues, which I know the permitting and the engineering and all those things address through the process. So as far as those things, I wouldn't see why we would need a deferment because of those, because I know they're addressed later on. Everything else that I've heard, I can address.
Okay. We have a motion for and a second for deferment. We've heard the comments by the applicant. All those in favor of deferment, state aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? There being none, the motion carries.
And, Mr. Chairman, just
Yes,
so
sir.
to clarify, we'll defer it until the next meeting.
That is until next meeting.
Till the next meeting.
October meeting?
Okay, 7B.
October.
October. October.
Take appropriate action on a request by the Calcasieu Parish Division of Planning and Development on proposed amendments to Chapter 26 of the Calcasieu Code of Ordinances. I will entertain a motion for approval. Motion by Ms. Cobb, second by Ms. Winey. Ms. Tunn.
Yep.
You caught me off
Happy.
guard.
My turn.
I'm sorry.
Mr.
Yes,
Crane.
Mr. Chairman, we appreciate it. Yeah, we presented these amendments to you last month, and they've been out on public notice for that period of time. We have received a letter from the Alliance for Positive Growth on a concern with one of the sections that we're considering for amendment, and that is Section 26-215D3. We're recommending that you remove that section at this time so that we can meet with them and have further discussion along with them and our engineering department on those amendments. Other than that, we recommend that you approve the other amendments to the ordinance as written. We have not received any other comments on any of the other amendments. So at this time, obviously, this is a public hearing that you're having now, but that's our recommendation.
Thank you. We did have a blue card. I guess we can entertain Michael Hankins.
Good evening. Michael Hankins, 419 Alamo Street, Lake Charles, 70601. I'm here on behalf of the APG. We'd sent the letter over to Mr. Crane and his staff, and The APG is a group of stakeholders in the development community, contractors, developers, architects, attorneys, bankers, et cetera, that try to come in and be of assistance to the cities and the parishes on ordinances so that we can, as our name says, have positive growth. So a little background here. Back in 2018, we worked closely with the police jury to come up with a plan, an ordinance for drainage. As you can imagine, the parish obviously had the staff came up with most portions of the ordinance. We had some comments, went back and forth. We certainly didn't want to be obstructionists. The parish was kind enough to make some changes that they agreed with. Other things that we wanted, we kind of said, hey, look, we'll step back, we'll see how this works, and we'll make changes as needed moving forward. So this ordinance has been in place, I guess, about 5 years now. About 18 months ago, I had a meeting with Alan Wainwright along with another member of the APG board. And we had some discussions about other items, and then we brought up a couple of items from the drainage ordinance that we wanted to see changed. Not to speak for Mr. Wainwright, but he seemed open to it. He seemed like they were not unreasonable points, but said that wasn't the time to make those changes. And we said, that's fine, no problem. So, now here we are, we're opening up the ordinance, we're making some changes to it. And our opinion on this is that if we're going to open up the ordinance and we're going to clean things up and we're going to make some changes and fix some things, that we should do it all at one time. We have a couple of items that, like I said, didn't seem to raise too much heartburn. They're not included in this change, and I understand that if we step back, this will take a little bit longer to get all these changes implemented, but I think that if we have a constructive conversation about the changes that we would like to see along with the changes that the parish sees, and we certainly appreciate Mr. Crane pulling back and saying, I guess, undoing one of the changes at our behest. But we'd like to go back and stand back at this thing and say, okay, here are the things that we want to see that are different. What do you guys not like about the changes we want to make? And what problems are you having? We'd like to have a little more full discussion about the ordinance changes rather than make a change now and then we try to get the changes that we want done here at a later period, and we just back and on and on and on. I feel like if we're going to open up the ordinance and make the changes, let's make all the changes at once and try to get this thing as good as we can for everyone in the community. So that's our position on this ordinance. So I guess that means we would ask to not approve this ordinance as is. Let us go back, let us get a more full comprehensive set of changes, and then come back and get something approved where we can stand together with the parish and say, hey, look, we all think this is the best thing right now.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hankins. Mr. Porsche?
Earl, on this, is that essentially?
I think Mr. Hankins is asking that we make a whole lot more changes than are in front of you tonight. Right now in front of you is the proposed ordinance changes. Wes, and I think Mr. Hankins agrees, that they both like you to remove for consideration section 26-215D3. So that being the case, I would suggest that you entertain a motion to amend the main motion to remove section 26-215D3 from the proposed amendments.
Correct.
That'd be your first motion.
Right. Mr. Porsche?
I would like to make a motion to amend the original motion to remove section 26-215 from discussion and from the original motion.
That's D3, 215D3.
D.
215D.
Waivers.
D, that are waivers, yes.
There's a motion by Mr. Porsche, second by Mr. Williams. All those in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There being none, the motion carries.
Now, Mr. Chairman, before you is the main motion as amended now that you can consider now take action if you so choose. Any discussion?
Got- Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
Just questions on understanding what we're doing and how we're going about it. This was amended back in 2018, thereabouts. This particular, what we're looking at, there was action taken to change something. in this at that time?
Well, there's multiple changes that we're requesting throughout the whole zoning ordinance, chapter 26.
Correct.
And so, part of the change that we were requesting that you just took action on was part of the drainage ordinance. That's
Oh,
still
okay.
in chapter 26. So you have elected to remove that one section that is in the drainage portion of the ordinance. The other portions that you have on the table right now are just throughout the other parts of the code of chapter 26.
And if I understand, this is mostly just cleaning up language and
It is.
bringing it back into order to make
It
it
is.
clearer.
There's some things in there that really don't make a lot of sense. I mean, we had, for instance, public schools was in two different places, and it doesn't need to be that way. There's some other changes, such as in the overlay districts, where we're adding tree credits, and we're adding to, we're trying to make it, the landscape section, consistent throughout our three overlay districts. So the language is the same. One of the we're taking that and just applying it to all three of those overlay districts. So that's what we're doing. We felt like that those changes were fairly benign. I mean, most of the ordinances they're having to, the developers and everybody's having to abide by at this point. That one section under the drainage order, we understand that. We agree with Mr. Hankins that we'll take that out. And of course, they had some other things too that they wanted us to look at. We just need to get with our engineering department and go over that along with the APG group or their selected folks, so we can sit down and agree to how we're going to move through that. So that's what everything else we felt like we could recommend that you move forward with it.
And how many times a year can you go back and change ordinances if you feel like it? I mean,
Oh,
if you come
there's
up with
no,
something.
there's no,
There's no limit?
There's no limit.
That's
You
what I
know,
thought. I was just asking.
that you have in the code that says you can't change your ordinance at any point in time. You know, this was a comprehensive that we knew. Ms. Vadrine, I've got her on staff, and I had her go through it, and you know, we tried to see where we needed to tweak it a little bit, and that's what we're trying to do.
You did a good job.
And Mr. Gav, if I understand, go ahead, Mr. Porsche.
So with the APG, they're wanting to wait and take a more comprehensive look at all things, make one big change. Parish is like, hey, let's just take it in smaller bites as we move forward. So the discussions will continue, essentially.
Oh, yeah, I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, if there's other things in the code that we need to look at that the APG wants us to consider, we can certainly do that. I mean, there's no prohibition against, you know, looking at all that. These are the things that we as a staff looked at. We presented it to our liaison group, planning and zoning liaison group members, and they felt like we should move forward with that. And of course, we sent it out to this group, the APG, and to the public, and so this is the public hearing for that. So,
Thank you.
Mr. Gabb, I think what you pointed out was since we voted on an amended motion and it passed, now we need to have discussion on that amended motion?
On the main motion as amended now, yes.
Right,
And that's what you're doing. So
Right.
if there's no further discussion, you can take a vote now.
Any further discussion? Mr. Porsche, I see you're thinking. There being no further discussion, all those in favor state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There being none, the motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, this, just let me point out, this will be a recommendation to the police jury. Obviously, the police jury has to take action on this. I think this is not going to come up before them until November, from what I understand. We've checked with administration, and I think they want to look at it and take it up in November.
Okay.
So anyway, that's where we are. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is to advise that the police jury took the following action on August 24, 2023. with reference to the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Board from August 22nd, 2023. James Thibodeau, Highway 27 South. Planning and Zoning recommended approval. The police jury approved. Next item on the agenda is to advise that the next regularly scheduled Planning and Zoning meeting will be held Tuesday, October 17th, 2023. I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Ms. Cobb, second by Ms. Hyatt. We are adjourned.